great day dealing with anti-Semitism. A happy and a healthy year. All right, so today we're focusing on pedagogy and really the beginning of the whole program thus far is trying to create offer you content and conversation and debate and discussions about the issues of anti-Semitism and issues related to anti-Semitism or anti-Semitisms. So a lot of content. And I know in the breakout sessions you were trying to process the content. And today is really focusing on, for the Wiesel King Fellows, scholars, is really beginning to focusing on your projects, the projects you're going to bring back to your campus. And for the scholars, the professors, it's a day like really starting to focus and grapple about how you're going to build or augment or change the course syllabi that you're working on. And these are the deliverables. This is what you're supposed to bring back to your campus and hopefully for the professors to teach and for the students to bring back some good things on your campus. So that's really the focus of today. So we're going to have Naya and Carlton. He's coming. He's the expert in pedagogy, as is Naya. So we'll start dealing with that. And is there anything else?
No. So we'll have the 2 sessions, like Charles said, after this that will be dedicated solely. You'll be in your breakout groups and you can work on your projects or your full slides.
Yeah, and I'm going to be around all day if anybody has questions. I've built courses. We run at Cambridge. We run a program dealing with trying to create courses and pedagogy and frameworks and understanding interdisciplinary framework dealing with anti-Semitism. So I'm around too, if you want to speak. And then another thing that I wanted to mention, ISGAP, we really see ISGAP as a platform. And it's a platform where we want scholars and students and people to sort of, to build. So if you have any ideas, projects, I know Mitch has some great ideas. Where's Mitch? Is he here? Yeah, Mitch. So Mitch has some great ideas that we've been discussing this week. So if anybody has any ideas, in a way, I think if you bring a project to the ISGAP platform, you empower ISGAP, and hopefully we can amplify and empower any ideas that you have. And it's really, we need to empower each other. It's building networks. Hopefully, after this program ends tomorrow, you'll stay in touch with us. We're building a network. You'll stay in touch with each other. It could be through ISGAP or with ISGAP. It could be on your own, but it's really about building up a network to deal with the issues that we've been focusing on all week. And the challenges are significant, as we know. All right, Naya,
yes.
The floor is yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone.
How long are you going to go for?
I have only 30 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Please. Good morning, everyone. 2 weeks of intensity. I want to just say a few remarks before. What's wrong?
The mic's little mic.
Oh, two remarks. First of all, I just want to say that yesterday we were all really privileged to hear Diane. Diane, are you here? I feel like she should be really a part of this. You could see she's an expert pedagogue. The way that she engages.
Do you want to sit here? Maybe. Come. Yeah. Diane. No, maybe it's. I don't know.
It's a really good group, Diane.
Yeah.
Come, Diane. Professor Martin, sorry, Dr. Martin, but I think that we were really privileged to witness, to be in her. She's an amazing teacher. So
I pay her.
Number 2 is something I didn't include in this presentation, and something that I think is really important is to know where you're going after this. So what institution you are in, and understanding the challenges. And when I did this in 2018, as a participant, I was teaching at UCLA, and I came back to the Center for Jewish Studies, wanting to pilot the course on contemporary anti-Semitism. And my challenge was that they wanted to take out the Islamic part. And I said, no. But that meant that also I didn't get to teach it. So that's when I pivoted and started to say, okay, maybe the college space is not going to be as conducive. And so I went to high schools instead. That's when I pivoted myself. So understanding your own challenges, where you are in your institutions, your regions, and kind of foreseeing that. Okay, so the art of pedagogy. So you didn't prepare anything, but maybe they'll for Q&A.
I'm here for moral support.
Oh, this is Socrates. If you guys know the Socratic method, it's a wonderful method for teaching, and I use it all the time. It's basically a way to discuss. So this is a quote from Benjamin Franklin: "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." And I thought that was a very productive way of thinking about teaching, and the 3 steps, right? Telling stories, they're great, but it's not enough. So you tell the story, you teach a concept, and then you engage the learner. I think those are the 3 steps for teaching. So right, what do you want to tell? So now start thinking as an educator. And it does, remember, I said this before, an educator is not just someone in the classroom. It does not have to be a formal setting. It's journalism. It's, she does public health. Where? Linda. Right? So it's, or working with the ADL, right? How are you what do you want to tell? What do you want to teach? And the most is, how are you going to involve? And that's the pedagogy kind of tricks of involvement. I believe in something called the backward design method. And by the way, MIT Teaching and Learning Lab has amazing resources. I'm just going to, basically, instead of saying, I want them to know this about anti-Semitism, I think of it this way. My students are going to walk out of my classroom, and they're going to walk in on campus, and if I stop them, in the middle of the day, they're going from chemistry to, let's say, Lit 101, and I say, oh, in the morning you had a course on anti-Semitism. What are the 3 things you learned that day? Just 3. It's like the Holy Trinity, right? You don't want your objectives to be many. So what is it that I want my students to walk away with? And they have to be measurable, meaning it can't be just an amorphous idea, something very vague. Right? Maybe I want them to know who coined the term anti-Semitism. Maybe I want them to know what is I learned the Red-Green Alliance that day, about the Red-Green Alliance, right? So tangible, and this is where, oh my gosh. So backward design is you identify desired results, right? We're going to practice. You identify desired results. You determine how are you going to know that you achieved those results, right? How will you measure that? And what activities are going to, so each has to reinforce the first. That's your North Star. Keeping your North Star is the objectives. So for practice, I teach on the Holocaust as well, but I teach more about Babi Yar and Holocaust by bullets. So let's say my class is Holocaust in the Soviet Union. I just pretended, what are my identified desired results? I want my students to know that term. I want them to understand what Holocaust by bullets mean, and I'm going to do it by looking at a case study of Babi Yar. I also want them to have a framework of understanding how do you place the story of Holocaust by bullets within the larger story of death camps, right? So in the West, we kind of conceptualize Holocaust with Auschwitz, but for Russian-speaking Jews or Jews in Eastern Europe, it was a different concept. And this is kind of acceptable evidence. I don't know what your thoughts are in terms of essays, research project, test presentations as formative assessments.
I think, so let's talk about what the difference is between formative and summative. A formative assessment is something that is not high stakes. It's something that they're doing to practice the learning. And so it might even be something that they repeat. A summative assessment is a one-time. It's the big stakes. There's a high percentage of the grade attached to it for that particular unit. It's the final exam at the end of the semester. It's the unit exam at the end of the unit. And so it's not like there's a specific assignment that's only formative and a specific assignment that's only summative. Any assignment can be a summative assignment, an end assignment, the sum total of everything. And any assignment can be formative. Let's see how we feel, we're practicing. So it depends on how you craft the prompt or how you craft the assignment. I can make an artistic project formative. And I can also take that same artistic project, create a sculpture, create a painting, create a song, write a poem, act it out.
So what was yesterday you did this with us, but what would you call that poem that you had the students do? Remember?
That was formative.
So that would be formative.
So that is they're learning, they're practicing, they're engaging the text in a creative way. They're getting to practice being creative without the threat hanging over their heads of, I have to create an original poem myself, because that's scary if you've never written poetry. But what's cool about poetry is once you learn it, you realize that you really you're a poet, right? You just don't know it yet. And so that's formative. They're practicing, they're learning. It's low stakes. They, have a book and they're taking text out of the book from different places. But then let's say that's formative. Let's say I wanted to write your own original poem, a summative assessment, a high stakes end of the unit assessment as one of a piece of many, right? There's always going to be some kind of reflective essay or enduring questions essay. Then I would say I would give clear parameters. It wouldn't be so nebulous as to say, have at least 20 lines, in your poem that you've chosen from the book, that you found in the book. I would say I want a minimum of X stanzas. You organize the stanzas any way you want. Maybe I'll say I want it in iambic pentameter. Maybe I'll say I want it in the style of X or in the style of Y. So I'm going to give more specific parameters for the summative version of a poetry assignment. So what's really cool about pedagogy is once you understand the overlying framework of how pedagogy works, you can, things morph and you transform your assignments. And the more you do it and the more you teach, the easier it gets and the more creative you become. And then your students do the most magnificent, wonderful things if you just set them free. If you give them good instructions and set them free, they will amaze you.
Absolutely. Wait, because we're sharing, I want to leave you with this is kind of what for us, it's not everything, but it's what I thought of throughout this few days that we have together. I think of a teacher as a tour guide, and your course is a map that you're giving to your students and telling them, I'm taking you on a journey. Here's my journey. You're on this with me. So don't be secretive. Tell them what they're going to learn, right? That's really important. That builds in trust also. Trust is key. Required readings. Don't just do required readings. How are the readings serving your objective? So always understand everything you do you're a puppeteer in many ways. Everything, it's seductive in many ways. You are having them work towards your North Star, your objectives. Chronology or scaffolding. This came up with our wonderful King Wiesel scholars. They have some fascinating projects. One thing that I wanted to point our attention to is as you are creating courses or books and you have chapters in your books or presentation, how are you going to tell the story of anti-Semitism? And I actually believe in flipping it. So in other words, show the modern manifestation of blood libel and then from where does it originate? Modern manifestation of world domination, from where it originates, because it's relevant then. Because that's how I would do it. Who is your audience? In other words, who is in your room? You really have to get to know the people in your room.
So let me interrupt you here, because that's so important what she just said. We tend to, especially all the type A overachieving people in this room, we tend to be the kind of people who we hit the ground running when the class starts, right? We want to start with the scholarly stuff immediately. We want to get them immersed. You have to pause. The most important thing you can do at the beginning of the semester is build community in your classroom. It's the most important thing you can do. Yes, introduce them to who you are, how you teach, and what the class is, but then immediately after that, the next thing should be some activity that makes them engage in conversation, dialogue with you and with each other. I like to use the 3 Ps where I put them in pairs and I give them little index cards and they have to write down something personal, They have to write down something professional. For them, it's, their academic interest, and they have to write down something peculiar. And so they write down their 3 Ps, and then on the back of the card, I have them ask me 3 things they want to know about me. And I don't promise to answer every one of those questions, but they're allowed to ask. And then they get in, they get in pairs, so it's think, pair, share. They do their own thinking and writing. They get in the pairs, they exchange information. Then I make them introduce one another. So I would have to say something personal about Naya is she has an adorable son who looks just like a great combination of her and of her husband. And something professional about Naya is she's an outstanding educator and a really lovely human being. And something peculiar about Naya,
But
you get the idea. And after they share all of that, they ask me the question. They ask me what they want to know about me, and I pick and choose which questions to answer. Do something like that. There's so many of those activities on the web. And you immediately start building community in your class, and then they build trust with you and with one another.
so important, and I know we're scholars, and I get it. I was in the academic world for many years, and academics forget this, the building of community. We're wonderful at research, but the classroom is a community. Charles? No? Create brave spaces, not safe spaces. Okay? Throughout the course of this, almost 2 weeks, we've touched on some spicy topics, right? But the point is, we should be able to disagree without being disagreeable, right? So it's okay to go there. And I go there. Remember when I told you, I know that I've done a good job if I've made you feel uncomfortable. Uncomfortable not with your ideas. Maybe challenge you to think just a little bit. So truth, it's a trigger for many. I work with mostly youth, some college, mostly now high school students. Narrative trumps truth, right? We talked about storytelling. Storytelling is wonderful, but don't give up on truth. History, it matters. Okay, I just wanted to show you, if you are working with younger students as in high school or maybe freshmen who need a little bit more guidance. So this is a class I taught on Dostoevsky and existentialism. Every day I had what the session would be with the readings and guiding questions. So they knew what they were looking for. And then we would discuss those guiding questions. So.
And we call those threads. If you give students reading threads or discussion threads, then they have something to follow through to your North Star. You're guiding them along the way, as opposed, because not all students know how to read, right? They don't understand how to read for content and for meaning. They're just skimming, and then they can't tell you what they read an hour later. And so you have to help them train their brains to look for the important things, to find those seeds in the reading. So those threads are amazing and very helpful and useful. It's
and
more
you teach
work
in
on your
college.
I teach in college. It's more work for the teacher, but it pays off for the student. If you genuinely care about your students and their learning and their edification, then you're not going to mind the extra work on your side to do it.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I put the page numbers in. They have to have a preparation book done now before they're coming into my class. I started with freshmen. I'm doing it at all levels. There's no preparation for critical reading, and it's been better these last 2 years.
Excellent.
So
I think also in the end, it's extra work to do this on the front end,
yeah.
but it saves you so much work in the grading.
It
Right?
does.
Because you have, so not only if you think about students are learning more, but also it's just, right? If they understand it, you're not having to make all these comments or it just makes your life easier.
Right. So I started off with a Benjamin Franklin quote, and there's a kind of a progression, and he ends with, well, real learning is when you involve. Well, I actually think it's all of the above. I think it is important to tell stories. It is important to be what do you want to teach? What's the concept? And the third one is a how. How are you going to involve? And so, for instance, Diane has three P's as a way to create community and involve. She did so much with us yesterday. She also did informative assessment while we were doing this. She asked you guys, what is this an example of? She tested, if you remember, the tropes. So that was an informative assessment.
And another thing I wanted to do with that was review. You want to rehearse things with your students. You want to touch back on something they learned previously in the new lesson. And so I wanted to touch back on what Naya had taught you last week and what I did yesterday. And if you do that for your students, you're reinforcing the knowledge, right? You're helping them remember what they learned.
How are we on time? So that's all I mean, I just, those were kind of the big concepts. For me, it's really identifying your North Star. Don't be too greedy. I want them to know all of anti-Semitism. I want them to know anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Really have these clear benchmarks. So that for me is really important. Can I say something else, which has nothing to do with pedagogy?
Sure.
Of course.
Sorry. To David Harris, sorry, I want to usurp my time really quickly here. You spoke yesterday about how every other country is not forced to provide its legitimacy papers. Only one country is, and that is Israel. And I've been thinking for years about this, so I created a sticker, my own sticker, and it says, "We're here, deal with it."
I love that.
And that's it.
That's awesome.
I'm not going to explain. You're just going to have to deal with the fact that Jews are here, and you're going to have to deal with it. Anyway, I just wanted to say.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Do you want to? We're good on time. Do you have any other?
No,
notes?
seriously, we should maybe.
I'll give you.
The only thing I would say is there's a backwards design template that ISGAP has. So maybe if you guys post it on the website for them to have, and there's a great book called Understanding by Design if you want to, like, all kinds of information and templates about backward design.
Can you give
I
it to us
suggest
today?
that book. Yes, absolutely. I'll go do that now so I can escape the spot.
Naomi?
Yeah, this was a great presentation. I really appreciate it. And one thing I wanted to suggest about formative assessment, kind of ties in with my class. So I started doing this right in my imprint class where I made everybody keep a diary. But if you make your students bring a journal to class and taking account their accommodations, you encourage them to write in it by hand and take time, like in the last 5 minutes of class, to write down, like, what did you learn and stuff like that. That's a really great way of doing formative assessment that also you don't necessarily need to check all the time, but it gets them in the process of, like, oh, before I leave this room, I'm gonna write this down, and you can give them questions also for, like, writing down. And then they have it all in one place, because they tend to lose things. So I just want to put that out there as a suggestion.
So are you, are you the keeper of the journals?
They keep their journals,
Yeah.
and they have somebody, like with some of the assignments, because they have to do multiple journalings a week, they check in with each other to see, but I do look at the journals, just because I found some of them don't do it unless I look at the journals, but I tell them, if you end up writing something personal, because my secret goal is also to encourage them to journal about all sorts of things, I tell them to, like, put a paper clip or something that I will not read what they tell me not to read. And
This is a continuation, but, well, Carlton.
Oh, yeah, I just had one, a quick little something. Wonderful. They were amazing, right? I mean, I could have asked for a better setup.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
On YouTube.
Without,
Actually, what do you want to do on YouTube?
I just wanted to show it.
We're gonna have a 90-second interlude.
I wanted to just show it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to show it.
It's prompted. It's already prompted.
Oh, no, but I think we'll be fine. They just got YouTube and fine.
Are there any comments or questions while we set up the YouTube?
Well, I have a comment. Even though I'm not really producing a curriculum, I'm producing a documentary, which I've written, you have to ask those same questions. You know, what do you want to tell? What do you want to teach? And how do you want to involve? So those same questions are asked before you produce a documentary. You have to narrow it down. You can't hit every
I don't want it up
thing.
there. I don't want it
So
up there
I
yet.
just
I just
appreciate
want
that
to,
because I think it's the
the
same,
trailer
same
for the
concept.
Elon Helene affair.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I was just going to introduce the idea of rubrics. I don't know if you use these. Sometimes it's helpful when students actually tell you what it is they're hoping to learn, or be able to demonstrate by the end of the course so that that's written into some of the work that you do. But I think, that grading to so many students seems so subjective and nebulous that having a rubric that actually lets them know what you're looking for
We're talking about the
and helps your grading go.
Yeah, the movie.
Okay, yeah, we all watched it.
I know, I'm gonna use a
okay,
pedagogy
okay,
clip,
okay.
just a clip.
This.
Great, so I don't wanna,
Okay,
I don't wanna put it up yet, but
Got it.
when it's time, do you mind sitting next to me so?
Yeah, I got you. I'll be right here.
Okay, great. Again, fantastic.
So
He wants it.
Anyway, we're ready, so we're good. I don't know if
you wanna cue it up on the
Not
screen?
yet, not yet, she's gonna do it.
Okay.
So what's that? Again, Dr. Martin, Dr. Lekht, that was brilliant. It's a perfect setup. And it reminded me of the fact, one of the things that I've done with regard to pedagogy is train K-12 educators, right, for many, many years. And one of the things I learned that contrasted with my teaching at the college and graduate school level is that so much intentionality goes into preparing K-12 or primary into secondary school teachers to do what they can do, to develop their craft, and there's the assumption, of course, that they come in with their course content and expertise. But there's so much intentionality in terms of developing skills, assessments, knowledge, background information, building background schema, having theories which guide their practice, right? And opportunities for ongoing professional development. A lot of times, as a professional staff developer, I've encountered many situations in which teachers don't want to be trained. I mean, a lot of, at least in my experience, and I've done it internationally as well, but often my schools in the United States will have at least some subset of teachers who somewhat roll their eyes, over the idea that, it's a PD day. I could be grading, or I could be doing something else. But a large swath of teachers are very, very much tied into examining their craft, learning more. And one of the things I often found when I traveled all around the States especially, was that in my workshops, and sometimes these workshops could last all day, they could last all week, they could look almost like ISGAP in that regard. Many teachers tend to say, and this is over years, if I get just like 1, 2, or especially 3 new things out of this day, I'm good. That means that I'm in a better place as an educator than I was before I came here. So that was really wonderful also to hear, Dr. Lekht, when you talked about making sure that the students get at least like 3 things that are measurable, right? As we think about formative and summative assessment. And that formative is really seeing how things are forming and their understanding how things are forming and their ability to develop certain skills and use them. In fact, what we often use in primary and secondary school instruction is a phrase, a SWABAT, and it's very, very popular in New York. SWBAT, which is where I taught in high school, SWABAT. And that meant the teachers, and they had to have the SWABAT written on the board, and it meant students will be able to. At the end of the lesson, the students will be able to do this, right? And so that was more the application of the learning as well. So for them to apply it, they have to be able to do, to know it, they have to be able to apply it, and to apply, we can check in on the extent to which they've learned. So that helps the teacher to engage with backward design and intentionality. And that often meant not just content knowledge, but it meant skill development. So the students will have this content knowledge, but the student will also have developed these skills. And there's a way, it's kind of like I was kind of priming you for today, yesterday, which is a very, education, school of education concept, right? We prepare the student for the learning. You know, say, you know, teachers are going to talk about the three bears. You know, how many of you have been frightened before? I've been frightened. Yeah, what frightens you, right? And then, you know, but that's intentional. That's priming the mind for the experience, creating a certain readiness, right? And then one is able to take the student along the journey that Dr. Lekht and Dr. Martin so exquisitely took us through and alerted us to. So I contrast that to my first teaching gig at a university. I had just left Oxford. I had gotten a wonderful position in Ivy League school, and had done my job talk, and then the chair came to me, and after they made the agreement to give me the position, they said, well, you know, we'd like you to teach these areas. Your background is, you know, we're obviously the Department of Political Science, and you have training in American politics and comparative, and these are the two subdivisions that we really want you to work in, and these are a couple of courses we'd like you to consider doing, and then you have these special topics that you can go and design based on your research. And then it was like, okay, see you on Tuesday. And and that was pretty much it. There was no check-in ever, short of the reading of student evaluations at the end of term, which has some merit, of course. But there was no, not just check-in, but there was no professional development. So kudos to you, Charles, for making pedagogy such a central part of what we do, not just this year, but always. I mean, I was with Charles in this journey from day one, and at that time he asked me to bring in the concept of pedagogy and to support the cohort, and so I've been doing that. But I'm really, really glad to know that pedagogy has been fortified here, and brilliantly. So they were reminding me of my days as a professional staff developer when that was all I did, and those tools are brilliant, and they really did anticipate a great deal of what I wanted to share with you. And so, in fact, the first thing I wanted to do, I would like for you to be able to walk away with a few things today, a few strategies that, you know, yes, some of them have been located at the K-12 level, but they resonate because they're based on brain research, and there are all kinds of wonderful sources if you want to examine some of the theory, if you have not already, which undergirds a lot of what we've been talking about. A wonderful book is by Eric Jensen called Teaching with the Brain in Mind. Teaching with the Brain in Mind. Also the cultural pieces of Lisa Delpit, Other People's Children, and some great, very clinical work on the brain and learning, Kane and Kane, Making Connections, right?
Is that the same one as brain-based learning?
Yes, it is, very much so. It's the same concept, absolutely. We're looking at, there was a great movement in the 1980s by scholars to become more interdisciplinary, especially clinical, with regard to, well, what does the brain do? What does the brain want? What makes the brain happy? What makes the brain work? If we're talking about engaging brains all day. And it seemed like a no-brainer, as it were, but it really had not always been. People just did what had always been done to and for them, right? And we tend to teach the way we were taught. That's fine, except when I used to go around the world talking to educators, I would say the problem with that is that we are the survivors of teacher-centered instruction. We're the ones who did well. We could do school, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have the diplomas and degrees. But think about all those brilliant students who did not do school so well and whose brains were not engaged. It wasn't that they weren't smart. It's that they weren't engaged and they weren't taken through a journey which helped them to develop and learn, right? So, not to spend too much time on that, but I do want to say that ISGAP can be very much, and has been, but can even be more so, at the forefront of tertiary learning. Tertiary learning. by making pedagogy front and center, along with the content, because a lot of university educators don't do it explicitly. We do it in our classrooms, individual ones of us, but it's not a conversation that enough of us have had, and I want to encourage that. So really, one of the things that I want to share with you are a few ways of, a few strategies actually, that will help you. Yesterday I already spoke about RVLs as kind of as an organizing principle, right? But if anyone happened not to have been in the room, I would suggest that you just attend to this one concept quickly, and then I'll walk you through the three. So this one is kind of like a freebie from yesterday, but there's still three that I want you to go through, right? So the RVL is a concept that grew out of my own research several years ago, and my reflection on education and curricular design. And it just occurred to me that as I study so much about how educators very often don't use or we're not using as much digital literacies, that it might be a helpful reminder to educators who don't. Some will intuitively do it, right? I mean, many teachers, and I'm sure most, if not all of you, are very much in this category, just do great things, sometimes through practice, through experimentation, through study, but also through intuition. I mean, that's not to be discounted. Some of us, the idea, there are just like natural born teachers, right? They just know how to do it, right? But it's also, for those lesser ones of us, helpful sometimes to have reminders. And so one helpful reminder, I think, for all of us is the concept of an RVL. Reading, as Dr. Lekht and Dr. Martin pointed out earlier, recommended reading, right, required reading, but also viewing and listening, right? So it helps me right now. I'm developing my courses for Hampton. I'm like tweaking some of the things, and I still check in on RVLs. Where's the reading that I have prepared here? What is the critical reading that I want and introduce and that I want to guide my students through? What is the required viewing? Then that helps me think, well, what are some long or short versions of visual text that I might engage that would be useful for these students to know about and perhaps be able to do something about in terms of their cognition. And then listening, the L. And maybe there's just an audio clip. Maybe there's a speech. Maybe it's the Churchill speech. We'll fight them on the beaches. We should never surrender. Right? I never heard that before. Many of your students probably haven't. Right? And so, having an audio clip can be useful too. So, one conceptual framework that I think that I share with you, that I use to this day, is the RVL. It just keeps me honest in terms of making sure that I'm diversifying what I'm doing.
Would the lecture fall under listening? Like if you're going to speak and teach?
Well, I mean, you could, but I'm thinking more in terms of assigning listening. I mean, I'm thinking of assigning something for the students to listen to. But you mentioned, though, a critical point, and that is the what we call teacher-centered instruction and student-centered instruction. We don't believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? A lot of folks, and especially at the university level, because students have been expecting to be lectured to. And part of the Socratic method is being lectured to, but also being engaged in terms of query, right? And so it's important to have student-centered, having teacher-centered instruction at the university level, because that's another modality for learning. Some people really listen best. And so we're not saying stop lecturing, right? What we used to tell the teachers in K-12 was that, yeah, it's okay to lecture, but there's also, and Jensen talks a great deal about this in Teaching with the Brain in Mind, there's a concept of chunking. Yeah, and parents know this. They're like, I can't just read to this kid for an hour, right? So the parent's going to chunk. So okay, we're going to talk. We're going to watch Granimals or something, and then we're going to Backyardigans, one of these little children's programs, and then we're going to read, and then we're going to talk about it. Right? That's chunking, right? So how do we chunk material so that it's digestible for the student? We do that at the K-12 level, but we can also do chunking at the university level as well. And so chunking might mean that you have student-centered instruction at the front part of it, and then you follow with lecture, or you could design it in such a way that you lecture first and then have the students engage. There's no one formula for how you chunk, but it's based on your teaching goals and what you want the students to know and be able to do. So I'm glad you raised that point, because it is important for them to be able to listen through our instruction, and the lecture is what they expect and they should get, that they should get. But it's also important that the student, as Dr. Lekht pointed out, get a chance to build community and to engage with one another. And so, with that in mind, I will tell you that there are three kind of, what we would call constructivist approaches. That is, making meaning with others. That the human brain is a social brain. Is one of the kind of maxims, right? That the brain is a social brain. It's not just a human brain. The brain, period, is a social brain. But we're engaged in teaching humans. So, but we say the brain is a social brain. So how do we get on the front side of that and make sure we engage the brain, and we also engage the whole person, right? Where there's a room for the heart in instruction, and it is not less than, it's just different from the head. And sometimes it can help the head to do the right thing, right? Odysseus beating his heart into submission, right, and all that. Okay, so one of the things I would like for you, that's very easy to do, one way in which you can build community and also engage the students one-to-one is with, it's often called, I think, pair share, and there are several other kind of strategies for speaking and listening. But you basically you could quickly get in and out of this component, just have the students discuss something that you share. And again, because we have a broader definition of text, right? For instance, about 20 years ago, the in the U.S., the National Council of Teachers of English came up with a new definition for text. And it's a beautiful text. I'll share it with you. But basically, I can summarize that their definition for text is that the text is not just a written word, right? The text can be written, it can be auditory, it can be experiential, it can be visual, it can be digital, it can be, and then they end it after this long paragraph of things that text can be. They say it can be a walk in the park, right? Because what they're saying is any unit from which meaning can be extracted. And
Is this a book?
It is in a book. In fact, it's in a book by Jahari Mahiri, but I can get you the direct quote. It's from the National Council of Teachers of English. Yeah. Yeah. So I share that with the idea that, we can, that frees us up in our creativity as we design curricula and projects too. I want to keep our Wiesel King scholars in mind as well, that that you think in terms of reading, viewing, and listening as well. And that's going to come more naturally to you because you are what we call digital natives. And those of us who were born after the 60s are often called digital immigrants, and we operate like immigrants who rely, on our children to translate for us because we have the idea, but we don't have the language and the codes, right? So we can be awkward with things digital, and that's why RVLs can help us too. Thank you, El Shaddai. So I'm going to ask you if you will just experience this text, and then It's very short.
Je m'appelle Ruth Alimi, j'ai 3 enfants. C'était un jour d'hiver, il faisait de plus en plus froid. Et ma vie a basculé d'un coup.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Dites-moi ce qui se passe! Quoi il a? Quoi? Il est arrivé quoi? Il a quoi?
Il a été enlevé.
Enlevé? Comment ça? Je comprends pas. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé exactement?
Bah, j'étais là, il m'a appelé, il m'a demandé de regarder la fille qui sortait de sa boutique là de l'autre côté du boulevard. C'est elle qui a entraîné votre fils.
Qu'est-ce qui nous arrive, Didier?
Le 20 janvier, à 21h53, Ilan reçoit un coup de fil de la part. Et après, on n'a plus aucun signal.
Qui aurait pu croire qu'une chose pareille pouvait arriver à Paris en 2006? Et pourtant, tout est vrai. Bien trop vrai.
Allô? On veut 450 et on les veut tout de suite.
L'appel vient d'Afrique.
C'est quoi ce bordel? Je veux parler à Ilan. C'est moi qui dis ce qu'on fait!
Il faut trouver l'argent, c'est un fou.
Il faut pas tomber dans ce piège-là. Hein. C'est seulement pour faire peur.
On peut pas juste leur donner ce qu'ils demandent.
Non, madame, en France, on ne paye pas. C'est un principe, sinon on aurait des enlèvements tous les jours, vous comprenez?
Allô?
Ok, c'est bon, je l'ai. C'est un 06 depuis Paris.
Il y a qui là-bas? Personne. Quoi? Il a jamais été 2 fois dans le même cyber. Je peux pas être partout, bordel!
À chaque fois qu'ils te demandent de raccrocher, tu raccroches. Et à chaque fois, c'est Ilan qui souffre un peu plus. Je le sais, ça, je le
Ils
sens.
savent ce qu'ils font.
Non, ils savent pas ce qu'ils font. Il y a écrit un juif a été enlevé. Il n'y a pas écrit un homme a été enlevé. Ils vont le tuer. Je vous assure qu'ils vont le tuer. Il faut les croire. Il faut faire tout ce qu'ils disent.
Oui.
Alors, tais-toi. Depuis le début, vous avez compris. Pourquoi vous avez peur de la vérité?
S'il vous plaît, il va me tuer. Ne me laissez pas, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, and thank you for that brilliant, and we didn't plan this, that brilliant comment, we've seen this, right? Because the idea is that's a bit of a formative assessment for the group, like, oh yeah, I got that, you. Okay, but the point was not to use it as a formative assessment, but that worked very well there. But it really is an opportunity for you to engage around text, and then we'll unpack how this can be used strategically in your curriculum, okay? So why don't you talk to the person next to you, just in terms of what you experienced? And in terms of, just chat for like 3 minutes to just pair, two, it can be 2 or 3. Just turn to the person next to you and just discuss what you experienced, what it brought up in you, what you want to say.
You don't need this anymore, yeah?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem,
Okay,
no
you're
problem,
wonderful.
no problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm being recorded, but it's just. I never had pictures. I had also yesterday. They showed it to us and we didn't discuss it. And a lot of people were very curious and hearing from us is what we said in the cafe here. And I feel like it's just like it's easy to show like really hard stuff. And if we see, I don't know, of other communities, we would do a trigger warning, we would say something, but these people are just like, so it's okay to show. These could be my friends, these could be like me too. I cannot really see it. It's really hard, and I will prepare my soul to see stuff like this, but I just need
So, and I wanted to use it in the context,
It just won't be the same box
Someone did that?
Because we haven't done that the previous years, the way that it's going to compare will be starting from that point will be different, you know what I mean?
Not the very last session.
We get to know.
Well, please bring that up when we debrief, if you don't mind.
I don't want to.
You're not going to spoil it. No. This is so powerful. It's important.
I really don't know how to connect all this with what I do, even if I have time.
So half an hour.
Okay,
but how much time do you need?
I need 20 minutes. I give the last 10. Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah. So we'll start
in Latin America.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, like in a minute.
So we'll start at 10:45?
Yeah.
And then you're gonna ask them to do a survey.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great. Okay.
The workshop sometimes will take.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Let's come back. Let's come together. No, you don't have to do that. I'm going to do it with my voice. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I was stopping Jalal from using the jar thing. Yeah, because actually you can do it with your voice, and it really is a teaching strategy. Which I've called, thank them to death. People are polite, and they don't want to appear impolite, and so we can seize on that as educators and just thank them. So thank you. We're coming back together. Thank you, and they get that's strange. No one really says thank you 10 times, but by the 9th time you have a silent room. It does work. It's called thank you to death. And that was the name that I use when I train teachers in all over the country. But yeah. So thank you, genuinely, for that. And I'm going to ask you if you can just kind of respond. Oh, you can respond on 2 levels. You can respond in terms of content, but you can also respond in terms of pedagogy. That is the opportunity to speak with a colleague. Now, I deliberately chose this clip because I knew, having done ISGAP almost every year, that this was the opening piece of your first night. And I do recall that very often people have been, they've arrived on a Sunday and they're tired, and it's a powerful film and there's a lot to deal with. And I understand that, and sometimes it's late, and there's not as much opportunity to process. So I wanted also opportunity for you to be able to process a bit. But in any feedback about it about using, so look at it at 2 levels, like with X-ray vision, that the content, but also what one could do in a classroom. Use a clip that's text around which students can engage. Yeah, so let's just go around. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's important to process, and I think that's one of the things that we talked amongst ourselves. I wish we could have had a chance to process, so now we had a little bit of time to talk about it. But I think processing films is very important. I know I have a professor that used Les Mis in the class, and so he was actually his wife was dying, and the professor just began to sob because it affected him so much. And so, but we were all able to process that even in the midst of that. So I think it's really important you can't just show something and not have a discussion time. Right?
Okay, great. And then also we have YouTube. I mean, this I deliberately chose the trailer because it was great. It was like the idea, like we've seen. I said, yeah, but it's a clip also, so you can you can be in and out of the clip was like 2 minutes, so you can be in and out of that text quickly. Yeah.
So I'm going to frame this in a pedagogical way. Last week, I believe it was Bill who was talking about using kindness when we teach. And what he meant by that, if I understood him right, was knowing your audience, reading the room, and understanding where people are coming from. When we watched the film last week, some of us had to leave because it was too hard, and maybe we weren't prepared emotionally, but and maybe we were tired, whatever. But we didn't. I think, just as Lisa was saying, we didn't have a chance to really process it, and went into almost 2 weeks of discussions that did bring up a lot of emotion for many of us, and sometimes without warning. Even like a discussion Charles was giving about just money and figures got to me. That was the one that made me think, wow, we're really screwed here. And I had to leave because it was too emotional.
The money and figures.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
And so I think this applies to Dr. Martin's lecture as well. I mean, I think what everybody has to say is so useful and so great. I mean, just the pedagogical guidance has been lovely, but I also think in a room where we're sitting with children of survivors, people who've been traumatized and re-traumatized, it's important to maybe give a heads up that we may be seeing, film is visceral, right? And I think when we watch a video or we see a clip of a film, even if we've seen it before, it goes right to emotion.
May I respond?
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to take your...
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, so I get it, but I think, in my thinking, this is very intentional. To create a space where, first of all, at one level, this is a safe space because we're all committed to the study of anti-Semitism and fighting, I think, all forms of hatreds, right? We're all here for that reason. You've taken your time, as David was saying yesterday, you're here, you left your family, you could be on vacation, it's the summertime, everybody's here because we care about these issues. And I feel that we, especially in the United States or in North America, we live almost in in these bubbles. And even in this safe space, even in a film, it's disruptive, it's unsettling, it's disturbing. And I think what's going on in terms of anti-Semitism and the ideologies that use anti-Semitism, they're killing people, they're hurting people, they're attacking students on our campuses, they're destroying people's careers, and it's disturbing, it's unpleasant, it's violent, it's vile, it's rooted in a deep legacy, and I don't want to be harsh, but it's a very disturbing film, but we're here for 2 weeks speaking.
I'm going to respond to that.
Okay, please.
I understand that the point is to put us in the seat of the student, to experience what the student
or faculty member, or not only. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt just for a second, and I'll listen to you. It's not just a student or faculty member. The ideologies that we've been dealing with, political Islam, the radical left, the radical right, they're killing people, they're hurting people.
I know.
Okay.
I'm really well
It's
aware,
I know.
and I think you know by now that I'm not in the classroom anymore because I'm doing this work on the street level. So I absolutely plan to use some really powerful text, but what I'm saying is I think it's really important to know who will be watching and internalizing and listening so that there can be a heads up. Because no matter where you come from, there must be, especially if we're dealing with a diverse classroom, we're dealing with a lot of different kinds of trauma. We don't know which kids are coming from abusive families, we don't know what kind of violence, right? So I think it's just important to say what you are about to see is disturbing. Period.
I did that. I literally did that. I said it's a very unsettling and disturbing film.
No, I did not do that.
I did that. But also when you say that, if you have to be fair to what you're saying, when I say this is going to be a disturbing film, I know, how does that statement, how do my words, how do you hear it saying, okay, it's going to be a little disturbing, it's going to be very disturbing.
I think what's really important, right, and you said this, right, at the beginning of this, when you talked about the kind thing, you talked about the care of the whole person, right?
Yeah.
In my university, it is literally inscribed, care of the whole person, as one of the values as you walk into the library. And I think, right, we have to show disturbing material in our class, right? I teach the Holocaust. I also know, there was somebody whose cousin got shot and killed in the middle of the semester, right? Bad things happen. And I think if this is a model of pedagogy, right, I think it's really important. You're going to say, we're going to look at this clip or we're going to see something and set up this, this may be hard. And I think acknowledging that, and I understand what you're saying, but if we're going to be teaching this, if the response is you're sitting there being triggered by the material and you're unprepared that we're going to see a scary moment, you shut down and you don't and you don't learn. So I feel like it's really, really important when I show a clip, even though like students know there are going to be horrible things, right, in my class, right? Like we do a workshop with Yad Vashem where they look at photos from Auschwitz. But I say that in my syllabus, but I also say like there may be some material, like it's, you know, it's okay if you have a response, just to kind of set it up and be like, I see you, I hear you. And like, I have to say, you know, this was like just having, like personally this was triggering for me because my little Jewish daughter is about to spend like 3 weeks in France, leaving today while I'm not home. So like, that was really hard for me before she goes off to grad school someplace else. But also, I just feel like this is something that's been kind of missing all week. That when I teach, I just feel like I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on.
No.
But I feel like it's really, really important to acknowledge that we're all in this together, we're a community, and we support each other. Like Imani and I were holding hands, we just met each other, we were holding hands during this movie, as I recall. You know, so that's all.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question? Yes, a question or comment?
I think it was just, I don't think audience was intended beyond this one. I don't think it was intended for our students when they go home. I think it was a way for Charles to throw down the gauntlet and say, these 2 weeks are different. This is serious, and it set the stage for everything else to come. It was very sobering and disturbing, just like you said. I think it was intentionally that way, just like you said. I, of course, couldn't sleep like most everybody else that night very well. That's okay. And I went home and called my own son after that to make sure I just wanted to hear his voice. So I think it was riveting and it's very helpful to know this is totally different.
Absolutely, but I think there's a difference between shock value and preparing. Right? Like contextualizing what you're going to use.
What would be for you the best ways for ISGAP to have contextualizing for you to prepare you so that you wouldn't have walked out? Or would you have walked out even if you had been prepared? Was it so emotionally disturbing?
Because I was so tired. I mean, just having landed.
But just in your, from what you can remember, what would be helpful or useful to you that ISGAP could do in the future for people?
I think
Because
it's worth
not
saying
showing the film
if
about
you
that.
have personally or generationally experienced violence against your people, please be aware that what you're about to see is extremely disturbing.
I introduced it as a very disturbing film. It's a very disturbing film.
I was reading specifically about this clip just now. I have same truth in pedagogy.
Yes. Okay. Haley, and then last place, and then we'll come around to July.
I think this is like really gets back to what you guys are talking about with community and classroom, and not necessarily that this environment is the space, but you know, the last few years and coming into this academic year, starting for me Monday, which is terrifying. You know, a lot of my work, my students' work, both in the classical classroom and at our legislative body, is about harm reduction and opiates, right? So we're ground zero for opiates. I have not had a West Virginia kid who does not know someone who has died. I mean, it is incredibly inflammatory. We're losing 300 folks a day due to substance use disorder. So what I try to do in that classroom is make a space to allow for a lot of different experiences. I want them to trust me that we are engaged in a space of really tough stuff that will say like, oh, you know, Marilyn is okay, like approaching this in a clinical way and scholarship. We can be in the statistics and not be upset. You know, Megan really needs a breather, right? Her house was broken into. You know, she's been victimized by folks that are afflicted. You know, all of those different experiences. There's just not one right way here. But if we are respecting the individual experience in that traumatized space, that's never going to be a wrong thing to do. And so I just think meeting people where we are is about building community class, you know, a community in your classroom that allows people to engage with really tough stuff.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think Lev, Jalal, and then
So, I think for everybody here it's a bit hard and might be overwhelming to teach these difficult things, and I've been trying to think how to teach it in a way that would disturb less students, and I draw so much similarities from an entire other field. So one of my hobbies is that I coach martial arts at my spare time. I also coach my daughters, so they don't really have a chance or choice. But when we teach people sports, sometimes, especially when we teach young children sports, sometimes we do not teach the direct thing. We teach something indirectly by a game, by play, by like we are basically I'm asking you to engage in a Jewish conspiracy and to indirectly teach them. So let's say I want to teach a certain I'm just throwing on the top of my head, right? To like from martial arts to punch somebody. So I would not teach a small 5-year-old guy to punch somebody. I would teach them to get a ball and throw it, right? The motion is the same, right? So by the time he's gonna be 7, 8, he's gonna know the motion. So if we teach academic stuff, sometimes we need and hard stuff, genocide, Holocaust, anti-Semitism, racism, teach about contemporary neo-Nazis that each and every student see probably online. We need maybe to not teach them the direct thing, but teach them something similar. So if I'm talking about white supremacy, I'll teach something about race, like from botanical studies, race mixing, and all the things that the Gobino and the others were trying to develop. I'll teach this, and then I will end up giving them the conclusion on how Darwinism and the thoughts of Arthur de Gobino and the like were developed. So I don't tell them, okay, I'm going to teach you why white people want to kill black people, because that's a bit hard, or why ISIS wants to kill Jews. This is a bit hard. I will teach them bits by bits, bits and pieces, and by the end of the classrooms, you'll probably see that they would make up the bits and pieces and make up the puzzle by themselves. So that's just why.
Okay, great. So that's I said Jalal, and then Linda, please.
I think that Carl's approach intentionally is the optimal approach when you prepare the ground or pave the road actually to know your audience and therefore apply the strategy to follow. When you read your audience, you can, for example, in conflict resolution and diplomacy strategies, that's my background. You do exactly the same thing. You can set a little, for example, once you read your audience, you can set a little, let's say, tricks or coincidences to sit with one of your audience just to ask them a few questions to psychoanalyze them. That's a classic one. Once you know your audience, of course, if you feel that your audience will be shocked, if you present something abruptly, like something shocking like that, and you read your audience, when I say read your audience, you read the age, the gender, the background, the ethnicity. So you keep all this stuff in mind. When you approach them, for example, you know that you will talk about something sensitive as race or anti-Semitism in this case. If you know that your audience will have, let's say, more sensitivities to one thing or another, to violence, you approach them gradually. And I still think that this is the best approach, and I apply the same approach when I speak or when I advise politicians how to how to deliver a speech, we prepare 4 or 5 different speeches, right?
Mm.
I go around the room, I speak to people, I look at people, I know who is the opposition, and then we choose one of the texts, and then we change it on the go. It's never the same, because you choose your audience, you adapt your language and your strategy.
Thank you, yes.
So I'd like to respond to Diane's comment about what should ISGAP do. 2 weeks before we came, we got a list from Charles that had over 2,000 pages of reading. And I tell everybody, they sent me 2,000 pages of reading 2 weeks before we come. And it was impossible. I had too many things I was doing. I said, but there was a message. And the message was that we were not coming for a vacation. What we were coming for was serious. And I think that the film was the same message. So if it was me thinking about that, as you were talking, I was thinking about that night. Charles, when you said this is very disturbing, you said it in a way that I was alerted. So for me, I had the proper preparation. The problem with that night was that you offered for us to process it, and everybody was too tired. And I would rethink that night. The introductions were critical, and everybody went on and on and on. So that was really important, because that was our entree in building community. But maybe there's something else about that night that you can shorten, so we have time to process even if we're exhausted. And people were probably hungry, maybe we provide, I don't remember, there's food, something, but I think that that is the critical change, that there's time to process the film afterwards, and then there would be different feelings, I think.
And before I just call on a couple other people, and then we're going to just move on a bit because we want to be sensitive to time. One thing I will say is that what I have done in the past, just to contextualize how I have approached pedagogy with ISGAP, is that I've used this clip with the Think, Pair, Share as a first event the day following the film, knowing then that people generally had arrived late, they generally did not stay for the conversation, but their minds were racing, their hearts were full, and they wanted to share. So it has been used intentionally to allow you to process the film. The only difference now is that it's not the immediate morning after the film, which is what I have done historically. I wasn't able to be here last time. Yeah, just a couple more minutes, and I do have more strategies that we didn't get a chance to get into, but I can just tell you. Let me just tell you very quickly, just a strategy, because I really mentioned this with the idea that we had built community, and there was a sense over the last 2 weeks that we had some shared understandings. And knowing that, then we could use this tool as a means for understanding how we're going to deal with complicated material, right? And so that we could use a clip such as this, as part of priming the students for the film. Saying, like, we're going to watch a difficult film. This is a clip of it. If you feel like you can get through the whole film, we're actually going to watch the whole film tomorrow. That could be one way. But pedagogically, you can use it before, during, or after. So much of pedagogy is about before, during, or after, right? And so this could, the clip, what I do like about clip, if we just step back from the immediacy of this and think of it conceptually in terms of using clips. Forget for a moment, if you can, if you will, if you'd be so kind, the idea of the content, right? And just think with me as a pedagogue for a moment. We can return to the content about the idea of using a clip, that using a trailer from anything, whether it's difficult or not, that you can use a trailer before, during, or after in the construction of your lesson.
I just have a really short thing, and I'll be quick. if you have an online classroom, for example, I do a lot of online classrooms, you have them watch the film on their own, and then you can do discussion posts about it, and you can literally have them write a paragraph and then respond to each other in order to process, might be another way to process.
Yes, it's going to depend on the idiosyncrasies of your own instruction, right? So, but just knowing that we have a clip, we don't always have to use long version, we use a clip that is still text, and we can use it before, during, or after the lesson. I think those are a few takeaways. I had a question or comment in the back, and then I just want to at least share with you a couple of quick strategies that you can also use in the class. And then we're going to be working one-on-one. And
I want to go back to the film.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I thought we'd do that as you wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to hit on that and then have you wrap up. Yeah. So yeah, question or comment?
I just don't think we can gloss over evil. And when we're dealing with an evil moment, we're dealing with genocide. And no, I don't believe in shock value, but you can work up to it. We do a presentation on campuses called 7 Factors That Led to the Holocaust. And a good portion of it, because we're talking to millennials, we talk about the guards in the death camps. Most of them were millennials, both female and male. And we talk about the evil that they accomplished. And yes, there are some pictures in the presentation, but we work up to it. We superimpose a young man in a coffee shop, and we ask the question, could it happen again today? And they're like, you can't really see it. A young man like this, a barista guy with tattoos, and what we did, we superimposed his face on a barista body in a coffee shop, and then we show who he really is. He's an SS guard in the death camps with an SS uniform in actual life with, bodies laying all around him. He was a millennial, probably 22, 23 years old. We talk about the bitch of Berksum, Belgium. I can't say it today. Who at 22 years old beat many Jewish women. She was a guard with her bare hands. So I just don't think we can gloss over the evil of genocide.
Okay. Haley, then I have to stop the questions for a minute.
I just want to make sure I am not at all saying don't get down and dirty for sure tough stuff. I am saying do it and do it again and again and again. I love what you're saying, Les. Sometimes we do need to look at other examples and paradigms to see ourselves and our experience. Absolutely. But yeah, I want to get in and encounter this stuff head on. But I'm just saying do it in a way where people can need it, so that you can be, cultivate an educational environment. That's all I'm saying.
And what you're really talking about in theoretical terms is priming. You're saying prime the audience.
Yes.
And I'm willing to take my licks for not having primed you sufficiently for some of you for that. So I'll take my licks for that.
Just one sentence. I think when I come and teach, I see my students and I have empathy and compassion to them. Yesterday someone mentioned the word compassion I think in a bad way, but I would just love to be treated with compassion and with empathy. I would like the people who show me will see me and see my potential trauma. I am coming from a family with Holocaust survivors. My family was murdered. And for me to see a Jewish person beaten in the street of New York, it's hard. I cannot stand it, and I cannot stand people smiling next to that image. It's just hard for me. And maybe some people we see so many things and we don't mind and it's okay. But if people that show stuff can just think of the potential harshness of some other people, it will be nice. I try to do it for my students. I will never show something to a black student or to a Latinx student that was crossing borders and stuff like this and not prepare them, because I care for them and I want them to manage to go through this. So just a thought about people. We talked a lot about Levinas.
Received.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm adapting this final strategy to this moment, right? So if you will, just indulge me, just with a sheet of paper, it's simple, very simple. This is called taxonomy of terms. This is a nice strategy that we've used for vocabulary building with K-12 students, but also for kind of brainstorming, but also kind of reflection. Again, with pedagogy, things can be used, strategies can be used before, during, or after with regard to any lesson. And any strategy can be used before, during, or after. It just depends on how you choose to manipulate the content and what you're expecting in terms of your teaching and learning outcomes, right? So I've adjusted this strategy for this moment, based on this moment. I had taxonomy of terms in mind, but I wasn't going to use it this way. But I think if you'll indulge me for just like 3 minutes, this may help us also in our processing. So if you just take a sheet of paper and just very quickly just write the alphabet in the margin, just straight down, you know, A to Z or A to Z, right? Okay? Just very quickly, just A to Z or A to Z, just straight in the margin. I'm going to ask you to engage with other questions for quick things. Just take like 3 minutes. Okay. So just straight down line it. In the margin, A through Z or A to Z, right? This can be used for vocabulary building, sharing. It can also be used for reflection, planning. So with the person next to you, or if you want to change partners, work with someone else, just kind of brainstorm for each letter. So if I were doing this, with elementary school kids, you know, second grade, I'd say, a taxonomy of fruit, and they're like, oh, A is apple, B banana, C cherry, right? So you get the idea of a word that begins with the letter. So what I'm asking you to do is do a taxonomy of terms about this moment, about what thoughts or reactions you have about what we've just engaged. So if someone who really didn't, right, A was like, awful experience, right? So
for every letter,
for each letter, just a word or two with the person next to you, but you can share. You can do it together, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't know which letter she anxiety or energy, because they had a lot of anxiety about what was happening. B.
And you can hop around. If there's a word that's come to your mind, you just go to the letter too. You can hop around too. So if there's a word that comes to your mind, just zip around and go to the letter.
So wait a second. Who leads the work?
No, I had this.
young, and has a family.
Okay. All right. Just take like 30 more seconds, if you will. And you can hop around. Yeah.
What's that? We have to end. We're going to be late. So we're supposed to end 15 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So we have to stop there. So we have to head on to lunch. Charles, you.
Not lunch. We have things to do.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
It's
So.
11 o'clock.
Okay. So it's 11 o'clock. So if you'll share as we walk out, just share some of the words I want.
We're not walking out yet.
Okay, so we just have to move on. Okay,
We're moving on.
So when we're over time, but at some point we're going to want to share what your processing was, okay, and then we'll continue to use me as well as we develop the overall curriculum.
Yeah.
I know that Carl's going to say something.
Thank you.
Okay.
I know Carlton is available during the year, and I hope Naya too. If you guys have questions with curriculum and course syllabi and pedagogy, we have two amazing resources in Naya and Carlton, so please feel free to reach out to them.
Okay. Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlton. Thank you. And also Carlton and Naya will be around. Excuse me. Excuse
Thank
me.
you, everybody.
We're gonna be around all day. Well, actually, I'm not gonna be around from about 11:30 to 12:30, but for the rest of the day, we'll be basically in this room or in the area. So as you work on your course syllabi and projects, we're here to try to answer questions. If you want to have any conversations, we're around to kind of help you. And I also want to, I think, respond to some of the discourse here. Look, the whole idea is to deal with something that is it's horrific. It is horrific. And what we're discussing is a film, a disturbing, powerful film. It's a film. It's it's a drama based on an event that happened. It's impossible for me to sort of encompass in a few minutes the last 2 weeks of our program. It's impossible for me to encompass or to understand even the legacy of anti-Semitism, what the Holocaust is. If you read Knight and Elie Wiesel, I think it's beyond comprehension. It's beyond description. It's beyond. The powerful words of David Harris yesterday. The uninvited catastrophe that David's family and his community and our people experience. Uninvited. The disruption, the refugees, the hunting and extermination of human beings. This is what we're dealing with. I'm just going to finish what I have to say, please. And yes, the purpose of this program is to try to grapple with this matter, not just as intellectuals detached from reality, not just as scholars who, as faculty members, were disturbed occasionally in our departments by people who think Israel and Zionism is an apartheid state, that Jews are white racists. This is what we deal with. This is the terrain and the space that we deal with. The students are dealing with this in a way that I think is even more raw than the adults in the room, right? And our community, I think, made a mistake by trying to support the students in the front line when the adults in the room are people like us, the faculty who stay in the university for decades, and not the kids who passed through for 3 years. And our community, said, go and fight the fight, ill-prepared. You know, and we are ill prepared, you know, with all the presentations, with Yehuda's presentation. Imagine, this is not a game. The Muslim Brotherhood with billions of dollars are pumping it into this college. There's a Mahfouz courtyard here. This is the Muslim Brotherhood in Pembroke College, Oxford University, Islamic studies started by Yosef Kawadawi. And we're walking around saying, well, we're not white, we're not racists, we're not colonialists. This is because billions of dollars have been pumped into the best universities in the Western world with a legacy of anti-Semitism, of replacement theology, of replacing the covenant, of problems with chosenness. Jews blinded by evil. This is deep in the culture. So when these characters come in here and reframe what it is to be a Jew, what Israel is, what Zionism is, after the just yesterday was the catastrophe of the Holocaust. This is horrible. It's horrible. It's unpleasant. Carlton, you see a Jewish person. You know, I heard it in your voice. I get it. You know, I get where you more or less where you're coming from. I hear it. I hear it in my heart.
I just want seriousness.
But.
And empathy. I'm not saying not to show the things.
No, but we have to look. I don't know. Yes, we have to be empathetic and supportive, and hopefully the last 2 weeks we've created, you know, Larry was saying how we're like a family and we're all connected. I feel connected to you and many of you in the room. You know, how do you convey the plight of apartheid? How do you convey the plight of Soviet Jews, of Ethiopian Jews? How do you convey the plight of the French Jewish community and the Belgian Jewish community and kids in Brooklyn being attacked on a daily basis because they're Jews? And we all learned as a group, the discourse is deeply embedded in us, you know. Many of us came with preconceived ideas and we were, you know, they were hashed out and exposed, and hopefully we learned, you know, together as a group. It's not pleasant and the stakes are high. The stakes are high. So it is disturbing, and maybe if you had a couple of restless nights, it's not the end of the world if we can take this energy and being disturbed and you know, bring this conversation to our families and our friends and our students and our colleagues, and hopefully this will enrage us at some level and we'll become active, because you know there's a silence. We're as a group, it's disturbing, and we're operating basically in a silent space. It's not easy. So I am empathetic to you. And yeah, I experience the same stuff on a regular basis. But hopefully, as we expand the circle, you know, we can be there for each other as friends, as colleagues, and you know, and inspire, you know, with the writings and the projects and the students in the room, and the articles that we can write. And hopefully, you know, you have a safe place at ISGAP as a platform to empower your work. And by doing so, you'll empower our work. And it's not easy. It's a big challenge. It's an age-old challenge, and it's disgusting, and it's unpleasant, and there's nightmares. But this is where we are, and it's not a Hollywood happy ending. Hopefully, it will be. It has to be. But yeah, I have to, you know. And I have to say, without being melodramatic, I think we kind of hang in the balance. You know, if the discourse at places like this, at the universities that you come from, are repeating the things that we've been unpacking here for 2 weeks, the implications are serious, because from the university, it goes into policy and into public discourse and onto our streets and into TikTok and social media. So the challenge is serious, but I think at the same time, you know, we look at the resilience of the Harris family, and we look at the resilience of our grandparents' generation or parents' generation, They establish a vibrant, amazing, incredible Israel. Jewish communities that survived a little bit in Europe, but in North America, South America. You know, as I said yesterday, the Jewish community today is healthier, more literate. We publish more books. We have more research centers and yeshivot and all kinds of stuff. Maybe more than in our history. So we just have to continue and support each other. So not easy, but hopefully we should all stay in touch and empower each other. And on that note, hopefully the conversation will continue too, and the discourse and the debates and the arguments, and we'll learn. So El Shaddai just emailed all of you a survey. So we would be grateful if you could take, I think it'll take roughly 20 to 30 minutes to do the survey. You can do it online. And please fill it out because we really we review it, we read it, and any of your comments, positive, negative, constructive criticism, we take very seriously. And it helps us to make the program better for next year.
And it's anonymous, so you really can be honest. Anonymous.
I have a feeling a lot of these people don't need to be anonymous to be honest. So. All right, so we'd be grateful if you could do that, and then we'll take a break.
Now, to do it now.
To please do it now, if you can. Pardon? Whenever. Go ahead, Elsha.
If you want, you can go get your coffees and teas and just come back and do it, but ideally it would be in this session. So like in the next 20 minutes, if you want to go grab coffee, tea, whatever from downstairs cafe, feel free to do so. But please work on it now.
Yeah.